Chapter 4, Dishonest Abe.
Abraham was tested by circumcision, shaving his pubic hair, washing the forepart and rear, using a toothstick, and plucking his armpits.
Nothing is more essential to Islam's credibility than Muhammad's version of Abraham. Islam must prove that he was a Muslim, that his God was Allah, and that he worshipped in Mecca. Recognizing this, Muhammad tried desperately to make the case. We pick up the trail in Tabari's history with something that sounds like Hitler's idea of Aryan supremacy.
Tabari. Ham
Should be Africans.
begat all those who are black and curly-haired, while Japheth,
Those would be Turks.
begat all those who are full-faced with small eyes, and Shem,
Which would be Arabs in Islamic parlance.
begat everyone who is handsome of face, with beautiful hair. Noah prayed that the hair of Ham's descendants would not grow beyond their ears, and whenever his descendants met the children of Shem, the latter would enslave them.
The slavery theme keeps reappearing because Muhammad used the slave trade to finance the spread of Islam. Turning Noah into a racist to justify such behavior wasn't beneath the prophet, but then again, little was. We're going to pass by Muhammad's history lesson on the mythical tribes of Ad and Thamud. Their battles with the Almighty seemed important to Muhammad as he dedicated scores of hadith to them. But I want to focus on the Islamic path to Abraham, as it lies at the core of the prophet's deception.
Tabari. Nimrod was Abraham's master and wanted him burned. The first king who ruled over all the earth was Nimrod. There were 4 such kings who ruled all the earth: Nimrod, Solomon bin David, Dhu'l-Qarnain, and Nebuchadnezzar, 2 believers,
Muslims, in other words.
and 2 infidels.
Nimrod only ruled a city-state. Solomon's kingdom only included a tiny portion of the Middle East. Nebuchadnezzar's realm, like that of Dhu'l-Qarnain, as Alexander the Great, was large, but neither ruled over the whole world. As for 2 of them being Muslims, Muhammad and Allah are again mistaken. There wasn't a Muslim in the batch. According to Ishaq's Sirah,
Tabari. Allah desired to send Abraham as an argument against his people and as a messenger to his worshippers, since there had been no messengers between Noah and Abraham except Hud and Salih,
the mythical rulers of Ad and Thamud. If that's true, there couldn't have been Muslim worshippers. 1,000 years had passed with no religious communication. Allah said he destroyed the Ad and Thamud, and he never suggests that Abraham visited them. So in an attempt to establish a religious context for his scam, Muhammad destroyed it. The scenario he has just laid out precludes worshippers, and without them, all he has shared thus far concerning the establishment of Islamic rites and the veneration of the Kaaba could not have been passed along.
As time drew near, the astrologers came to Nimrod, saying, "We have learned from our Lord that a boy will be born in the city of yours, who will be called Abraham. He will abandon your religion and break your idols in such and such a month and year."
Muslims are attempting to bestow on Abraham, whom they view as the father of Islam, the same kind of birth announcement enjoyed by Yeshua, the founder of Christianity. But they didn't have a clue when either man actually lived. Both secular and scriptural histories tell us that Muhammad died centuries before Abraham was born. The clay tablets that were unearthed near ancient Babylon, starting in the late 19th century, suggest Nimrod died violently at the age of 40, around 2800 BCE, 2 generations after the Great Flood. Apart from the Bible, Abraham is not as well known. Yet archaeologists have been able to confirm the biblical accounting of when he lived by unearthing the places the Scriptures say he visited, or that coexisted during his time. They have found dozens of corroborating artifacts that confirm Abraham lived between 2100 BCE and 1950 BCE. These men were not contemporaries. Since their lives were separated by 700 years, everything Muhammad claims about them is both suspect and uninspired.
Tabari. Another story about Abraham is that he rose over Nimrod so bright that it blotted out the light of the sun and the moon. He became frightened and called the magicians, soothsayers, and prognosticators to ask about it. They said, "A man will arise in your domain, whose destiny is to destroy you and your rule." Nimrod lived in Babylon, but he left his town and moved to another, forcing all men to go with him, but leaving the women. He ordered that any male child who was born should be slain.
This is a blatant, although not believable, ripoff of the Star of Bethlehem that directed wise men to Yeshua, and of King Herod killing the male children born that year in Bethlehem. The Bible tells us that Abram, the future Abraham, was born in Ur, the great Chaldean city, to Terah. His journey to the Promised Land is detailed in Genesis 11. Mohammed says,
"Some task in Babylon came up for which Nimrod could trust only Azar, the father of Abraham. He sent him to do the job, saying, 'See that you do not have intercourse with your wife.' Azar said to him, 'I am too tenacious in my religion for that.' But when he entered Babylon, he visited his wife and could not control himself. He had intercourse with her and fled to a town called Ur." Tabari. When Abraham's mother found that she was in labor, she went out to a cave near her house and bore Abraham. She shut the cave upon him and returned home. Later, when she went to see how he had done, she found him alive, sucking his thumb. Allah placed Abraham's sustenance in it.
Mohammed was abandoned by his mother at birth, so he invented this story to mimic his own childhood.
Tabari. Abraham had been in the cave for 15 months. When he said to his mother, "Take me out, that I may look around."
Why bother? After 15 months in a cave, he would have been blind.
So she took him out one evening, and he looked about and thought of the creation of the heavens and the earth, and said, "Verily, the one who created me and fed me is my Lord. I have no other God but him."
Thus, an infant conceived the first pillar of Islam. But alas, the Hadith and Quran quickly plummet into spiritual delirium.
He looked out at the sky and saw a star. "This is my Lord." He followed it with his eyes until it disappeared. When it set, he said, "I do not like things that set." Then he saw the moon rising and said, "This is my Lord."
Perceptive kid. Allah began his life as a moon deity.
And then he followed it until it disappeared. When it set, he said, "If my Lord did not guide me, I would have gone astray."
A 15-month-old baby converts from paganism to Islam by watching the moon. Sure, why not? Like so many Islamic traditions, these were written to provide the context the Quran lacks. Let's dive into the 6th surah to hear what Allah has to say.
Quran 6, verse 74. When Abraham said to his sire, Azar, "Why do you take idols for gods? I find you and your people in manifest error." Thus we showed Abraham the visible and invisible kingdom of the heavens and earth, that he might be of those who are sure and believe. So when night overshadowed him, he saw a star. Said he, "This is my Lord?" When it had set, he said, "I do not love the setting ones." When he saw the moon rising, he said, "This is my Lord?" When it set, he said, "If my Lord had not guided me, I would have been of the erring people who go astray."
This is embarrassing. The conversation condemns the message. After Allah showed Abraham his kingdom so that he might be sure, the Islamic babe turns to the sky, the source of idols, and says, "This is my Lord." What is it about Islam that turns everyone's brains to mush, Allah's included?
Quran 6, verse 78. Then when he saw the sun rising, he said, "My Lord is surely this, the greatest of all." So when it set, he said, "O my people, I am through with those. Surely I have turned my face toward him who originated the heavens and the earth, and I am not a polytheist."
The sun, the most popular pagan deity, is now God. Never mind that it was the moon in the preceding tradition. After becoming an idolater, he magically turns and says he's through with idols. And after asking the star, the moon, and the sun if they were God, he says he's not a polytheist. All the context in the world, all of the explanations ever written, can't undo the damage the Quran does to itself.